Back to My Garden, episode 47.
Welcome to Back to My Garden. Discover your passion for gardening. Here's Dave Ledoux.
Are you concerned about toxic chemicals, GMOs, and frankenfood? Don't panic. Grow organic. Discover my new resource for organic gardeners. Go to www.backtomygarden.com/myorganic. Do you love homegrown tomatoes? A free report reveals the 5 dirt cheap tools I use to grow 22 types of heirloom tomatoes, including my secret soil booster. Download your copy instantly for free today at www.backtomygarden.com/free report. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world when you listen to this. I'm Dave Ledoux. Welcome to a fun edition of Back to My Garden special guest this week. Tracy Blevins, are you ready to get digging?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Dave.
I want to introduce you to our listeners. Tracy and her husband Bill are co-founders of an internet startup called plantsmap.com. They're in Spotsylvania, Virginia, and Tracy started PlantsMap to keep her plant lists organized. No one in the world is doing this. You're going to love this when we dig into this. Think of it this way. It's like a unique plant map and a sign with a QR code and a scan code. It's like giving each of your plants their own web page on the internet. That's the way I was explaining it anyhow. I'm sure Tracy will do a better job. Tracy, welcome to the call.
Hey, I think that you might need to be our pitch man. I think that's the best pitch I've heard so far. So you've got it right. That's how it kind of came about. I've been gardening since 2005. I'm really addicted to plants and collecting plants. I'm more of a plant collector than a designer, and I've kept lists and lists and lists of plants, and my husband started collecting conifers, and I love to take pictures and keep information, and I like to learn about the plants, and so we wanted to put it all together, and we were going to make this website just for ourselves, and I said, well, why don't we make it available to anybody? Other people can sign in and do this too. I think there might be an interest there, so very cool. I think we're getting a lot of interest in it, so I think you described it very well.
Well, we're going to try to say the word plantsmap.com at least 10 times on this podcast. And it's like 3 websites. There's a community you're building. Mm-hmm. And then you've got these unique plant markers that when I saw it, I ran across the room with my iPad to show my wife, look. And describe for us a little bit that first little germ of an idea, because you're an entrepreneur, you're a .com startup. Mm-hmm. You're probably the most interesting person in the room at parties. But tell us, well, yeah, it's hot, you're a .com entrepreneur, but in the plant world, how did you come up with this idea?
Well, I think it's been kind of a meld, because my husband is really in the startup mode and the startup world and has participated with some various other startups, and we kind of had this idea. We knew what our problems were and how we wanted them solved, and we kind of had the concept going, and I've been avidly into, keeping my information for years, but just wanted a better way to do it, and we took it to a startup weekend competition here locally, and we won that competition, and we said, oh, okay, so maybe there is something here. And one of the other things that immediately we realized is that this was going to be something not only very useful for an individual garden, but for public gardens as well, to keep their plant information. And, a lot of them go to a lot of effort of inventorying their plants, or maybe they're just written down and it's hard for them, if they're a community garden, to share what they're growing and what's going on. This will kind of bring them together, and you're kind of making your plants do your marketing and your social work for you. So that's kind of the idea. Was it's a useful tool. It's really a journal for the gardener, and it's still kind of evolving. And we're getting calls and emails from people, and we're listening to other gardeners too say, well, we'd like it a little this way, or we'd like it a little that way, and so we're evolving. We're still in startup mode. We're still in we're just in the beginning stages, but we're getting a lot of enthusiasm and interest. So we knew we were on to something when we started to gain, a lot of followers fast, and people just randomly calling us and saying, we really like what you're doing, in both individual types and organizations too. So,
can I tell you how I found you guys?
Okay. Yep.
So we have our raised bed gardens, and each row is marked off with a white plastic plant tag. Mm-hmm. And we wrote on it with the world's #1 selling black marker. I won't name the brand, but the tip is sharp, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But the ink is not ultraviolet resistant. So every one of our rows has a beautiful, white, pristine, blank plant marker. Mm-hmm. So we have no idea. And we have 22 kinds of heirloom tomatoes, so it's kind of a guessing game. So I kind of Googled, and that's how I found plant map tags.
I've been making, really, that's interesting, because, the interesting thing is we didn't want to be as forward with the tags at first, because we really wanted to be more about people sharing their gardens and what they're into growing and telling us about their plants and stories, and being a useful tool to keep your plant information organized with your pictures, because that was the thing. I couldn't find anywhere, any place where I could, I'm putting them out on Instagram, I'm putting them out on Facebook, Twitter, but I want to save them in one file. So I make a profile about this plant, and then I can always go right back to that profile if there's a picture I want, and then share it out to Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. But the tags were my husband's obsession, because I was making tediously ordering the metal tags, tediously printing them out on the little P-Touch printer. And it was a tedious process. It was not fun. We did a survey to people in February, and we got the same response. They love to keep information about their plants. They like to ID their plants, but they hated the tags that they would make. They hated the process of ordering them, or it was expensive. And so we kind of come up with this idea of, what if we could kind of become like a Vistaprint of tags, where we bring the price down, we source the materials in a big way, and make it available to individual gardens, and even public gardens. We're having problems with this too, that we talk to. And the thing that my husband had to have, because he's a technology type of person, an early adopter, was he wanted a tag that connected him to the plant. It didn't just say, I'm this Franklin tree. He could scan the tag and say, I'm this Franklin tree, and learn all this about me. And it not just your typical, you can put in your typical information, average size, soil, full sun, USDA, but it's, why am I interested in this? How many times have I tried to grow this and failed? Or it's been successful, or I wouldn't grow this again for whatever reason. Or links, that's the thing that I really like. I can take videos on Instagram and Vine and put them into my plant profile and quickly reference them. Or I'm a master gardener, and if there's a fact sheet out there about that plant, or there's a problem about that plant, I can save those fact sheets to that plant profile. And so from my phone now, I can just scan that tag and have all that information right there, and I can edit it. I can add more photos, more notes. So that was the primary thing that he wanted with the tags, and they have been, now we find, the leading interest in what we're doing. We got, 2 calls this week of rose gardens that want these. So we're formulating how to do rose tags now, because neither of us have been into roses, and how can we modify this so that we can also accommodate the rose folks, what they want on their tags. So
for the people driving in their car, keep both hands on the wheel. I'm going to put all the links to Tracy's resources and sites in the show notes. If you're jogging and just listening, trying to conceptualize this, picture a metal stake with a metal tag. It's about the size of a business card, right, Tracy?
That's the original one that we came out with, because our first garden profile we put in was actually a garden that I volunteer with. It's Causey Botanical Park. It's a small community garden. We wanted a big part of Plants Map to be about connecting people through plants to community organizations that garden together, volunteer organizations, botanical gardens, nonprofits, in that whole green realm. So we started with Causey Botanical Park. I got the plant material list from our extension agent. It's a cooperative extension master gardener project in the community, Arboretum, to teach. And we started with that tag because it has a hole in it, because he wanted them attached to the trees. He didn't want to do the stakes. So you can get just that business card tag that can attach to trees. You can get it on a stake because a lot of people want them, and in your home gardens, you usually want a nicer presentation. And then we're getting a bigger size. It's more of a note card size because we find there's other people that want that. We're doing a trail in Spotsylvania that has a naturalist identified all the trees in there. They want to replace their tags with ours, and it's a bigger size. And they're going to actually put it on the tree. So it's for more mature trees because they didn't have any low branches to put the other tags on. These were big natural specimens that they had identified. So those can go on the stakes too. So there's actually 2 sizes right now, and the stake is optional.
They say gardeners have good memories and, dull pencils. If you ask what grew better last year, your hillbilly tomato or your mortgage lifter tomato, unless you've kept notes.
Right.
What did I plant in this space last year? Well, the genius of your tags is the QR scan code. And if you don't know what a QR code is, you've seen them. They look like weird postage stamps made up of squares with dots in them.
Right.
And any smartphone in the world, you scan it. It's free on Android. It's free on iPhone and all the rest. And this is what I mean, is it's like a Facebook for your plants. And all of a sudden, every note you've ever kept, every photo you've ever kept, and now you're saying videos.
Right.
Like, good gravy. I'm excited about it. I think you can hear it. It's a great idea.
So we would love to have your profile on there, and then you can link. If you could do a little podcast about a plant, link to your podcast.
Well, yeah, maybe now talk about the community, because now you're taking these QR scan codes from everyone's garden, and you're building this amazing community of gardeners. And you see the big map with the little red tags on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're growing, and I like to say we're growing one garden and one plant at a time. We didn't start with a core database because the concept was that it would be contributed socially. It would be a totally different approach to other websites. We didn't want to be a how-to website. We didn't want to be a plant ID website. We didn't want to be a forum or a blog. We wanted it to be social content. But the difference is that we're built to capture your plant information for you and create a online journal and catalog for you as well of your plants. So we're just in the beginning stages of building the social aspects, but we think it's going to be a great way, we hope, for people to start to connect with each other who have similar interests, and especially connecting up with community gardens or volunteer organizations like Tree Fredericksburg or Tree Stewards or urban forestry folks, and help them gain more volunteers. We know that there's very strong interest from millennials in gardening, but a lot of them are urban and they just don't own a home, but they really do want to grow stuff, and they're very social. So we wanted this to be a wide variety of interest and skill levels, and people who know the names of their plants, people who don't know the names of their plants, and who wanted to just share and be excited about growing things. And it would be kind of a grow with other people's enthusiasm, and wanted it to be something a younger generation would really adopt because it's very social forward and meets what they need now, which is it's mobile, it's on their phones, and it's socially oriented, and they learn from other people that way, and they can go and garden in community gardens or tree programs or tree activities in their community. So you don't have to have your typical garden to be on PlantsMap. We say it's just a list of plants that you are enthusiastic about or desire to have or appreciate. Nice. Or you're a big tree hunter, you put your list of trees that you find and map them. So
I know you and Bill are in the midst of this .com startup, and being entrepreneurs, it takes a lot of your time. Did you get a chance to garden this season?
I always make time to garden, because if I don't, I get in a really grumpy mood. I really have to be outside, either early in the morning or go outside at lunchtime, and when we do move to the phase of having an office somewhere, one of my requirements is, look, we're going to have a garden wherever we move to. There's going to have to be a working garden somewhere around us. Wouldn't it be cool if we could start a little arboretum around PlantsMap or something like that if we have a home base eventually somewhere? So I always make time to get outside because it's what makes me happy, and it's what makes me feel good. And so I always have to spend some time with my plants outside and in my backyard, and if it's just walking around looking at them, or I can't help myself but start weeding or watering or something like that. So always work it in, always adding more plants. So I haven't been able to buy as many plants this year as I would like, but I have some opportunities coming up in September here locally. So
nice. Well, we have a lot of listeners from Singapore and Hong Kong that have a very, very different garden than you do in Virginia. Hello to our listeners in Australia. I know part of them are in like record drought, and then another part is having flooding. So they've had a challenging season. What's your garden like this year, and what has made you the happiest, and what's frustrated you?
I have to say this year has been, and where I live in Virginia, Zone 7, it's been actually a very good season for us this year. We haven't had any real long streaks of hot weather. We've had rain. We haven't been dry. It hasn't been too much rain. It's actually been a very kind growing season this year. So things have grown very well, thankfully. They haven't needed, a lot of attention this year. We dabble in a little bit of vegetable gardening. I'm not a big cook, so I don't have a huge vegetable garden. I don't can and preserve and all that stuff. If I can't stand out there and pull a tomato off and eat it there, I'm probably not going to do any canning or preserving with it. But we grow tomatoes and peppers, or something I'm really into growing, and enough for us. And we grow a little bit of excess, as you always do with a vegetable garden, and we give that to friends, or we give it to a local Grow for Your Neighbor project where they give it to a food bank. So we just dabble in vegetable gardening. I primarily have always been into woodland gardening of woodland plants and trees and native understory plants and trees. So I have a viburnum collection and a hydrangea collection and rhododendrons, and I like to find unusual trees that you don't typically find in garden centers. So that's usually what I'm on the hunt for when I go to plant sales, are trees and shrubs that are unusual that you don't see everywhere. And my husband does the front, and he is into collecting conifers, and I think he's planted like 200 conifers since we've moved in. A lot of dwarf ones, but we are on 2 acres. So we have a lot of room to work with. So,
wow, 2 acres for our city dwellers who have patio gardens. That's bigger than the parks. Yeah.
I was looking at your garden and your information, so it'd be interesting to see. I think that's one of my things about PlantsMap is I've lived in 3 different states and known gardeners in those 4 different states actually, and I just love learning from them and finding out what they're interested in and what they're passionate in and what they enjoy gardening. And so I love to see how creative people are and what people do to garden and grow things, if it's houseplants or if it's a balcony or if it's a homestead or whatever it is, Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting to learn what people really are into growing.
I love the phrase woodland garden, because the image it conjures up, it's a word picture, and it's instantly relaxing and tranquil and beautiful. And I think a lot of people are in stressed out type A busy lives, and they need more beauty and less drama in their life. And I think gardening offers that to them. Would you agree?
Yes, I do agree. Yep, I do. And again, if you don't have the space at your home to do that, I lived in a townhouse before, and that 2 years I got the opportunity to learn a lot about container gardening. So I did a lot of annuals, and I did a lot of container gardening, and I learned you could grow things in containers that I wouldn't have thought I had irises that I moved with me because they were my grandmother's, and I grew them in containers. And I'm like, who knew you could grow irises in containers? So when you find yourself in different circumstances and situations, I think there's always some way. If you're passionate about it and want to grow, you'll find a way. Even if you're going to a community garden, or you find an arboretum, or you find an organization to volunteer with, where you can just go and set, in that park or that arboretum or that little pocket, public urban garden somewhere that you find that's a little treasure. That's your place.
When you go to plantsmap.com and there's a map with all the red flags of people who have joined the community, do you ever go in there and just look around and see how many different pins there are?
Absolutely. Every morning I look forward to getting up and seeing if somebody's added something new and interesting and unusual. And I can't wait until we can add more social features where I can actually directly comment. Right now I look at their Twitter account and I go connect with them on Twitter or Facebook or something like that, whatever they might have put up there. So yeah, every morning I like to look at it to see what's new and what somebody's put up and what people are interested in doing or creatively doing in their gardens.
The first pin was you in Virginia. The pins have spread all over. Any idea how many cities or states you're in?
I'm not sure right now. I actually haven't done I haven't done any stats by city yet, and I haven't checked our stats recently. But yeah, we're growing. Yeah. So it's fun to see that in real time there with the map when somebody adds something new there. And you start to see the numbers growing in certain areas. So, and that's one of the things we're hoping to do is to get, pockets of people doing Plants Map together, because that's part of what we're about is social gardening, whether it's virtual or real. That's kind of what we want to be about. So
Nice. I glanced at the clock and we're moving quickly through our half hour, and now's the time in the show where we play a game called 5 Quick Questions.
Okay.
This is your chance to share wisdom and resources with novice gardeners.
Okay.
You ready to play?
Yep. This is like rapid fire, right?
Let's see where it takes us.
Okay.
Question number 1. In your opinion, what do you think is the main reason that stops most people from even trying gardening?
I think some people see these images of perfection in magazines or even on Pinterest or some of these websites where there's these perfect gardens and these manicured gardens and these beautiful, perfect tomatoes and vegetables. And I think most of us who are really into gardening know that's not really what it's like. Somebody came in, groomed that garden, and took a picture. Some of us spend a lot of time in our gardens, and maybe on any given day they would look that beautiful. I am, again, into plants more than I'm into garden design, so I will probably never be featured because my garden doesn't look like a typical cottage garden or a rose garden or an English garden. It's a woodland. So I think that people get intimidated by the notion that it has to be this perfect cottage garden and these perfect roses and plants that are blemish free, and it's not like that. It should be fun and enjoyable and a learning experience. So let it just do what it's going to do and do as little as you want to do. It doesn't have to be big. It can be small, Even if you have 2 acres and you only want to put in a few little hosta gardens, then do that. And that's what you enjoy.
In your career, has Bill ever had a conifer refuse to grow, or have you ever had a hydrangea or rhododendron that didn't make it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, all the time. I mean, this winter was kind of a really hard, we had that polar vortex. And, we used to live up in Rochester, New York, and I was looking almost parallel to where you are, right? In latitude. And so we lived there for 5 years. And, I've lived in Alabama. And so you learn to adapt, and you learn that not all plants can grow in all places. And it's really hard to believe that a half a zone difference makes a difference in a plant. So all the time. And I try things, even if it's a little bit out of my zone, or people say, oh, don't do that because it's not going to grow here. I love pulmonarias, and people are like, don't grow them here, they won't work. And mine are doing gorgeous where I put them. So yeah, you have trial and error all the time, and you don't know what it is. But we kind of joke, master gardeners say, well, we know what killed our plants because we research it. So that's one of the things about master gardeners. We always want to know what killed this. Was it me? Did I do something? Was it a pest? Was it the soil? What was it?
I was at a farmer's market with my wife last week and talking to a master gardener that had a booth there. And this woman just walked up and pulled out of a bag like this rotted black tomato. And she was so upset. She said, "This thing has killed every tomato in my garden. What is it?" And I just, the master gardener was like a house doctor on call. Like just a random stranger walked up with a sick plant and she jumped in and said, "Oh no, you're in trouble. You can't grow any tomatoes there for the next 36 months.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I am in the Master Gardeners. I'm still actively in the Master Gardeners, and we do a farmer's market plant clinic, and we're doing the last one this Saturday, and I'm working at it. So I love that because I don't grow everything, and I do like the questions from the public because you do kind of research it and go, well, I'm not familiar with that, and I'll research it for you, and I'll figure it out, and I get to tell them about cooperative extension and how they have all these valuable resources for you. So
let me interrupt and slide you. We'll skip question 2, come back to it. Question 3 is, can you recommend 1 or 2 good internet resources for a novice gardener?
Well, of course, the first one is going to be Plants Map, because I do think that is a place where we are going to, I said we're not a plant ID website, but I think that you can, as people contribute more and more plants that they're interested in growing, you'll see a bigger diversity of plants. We want to be, from houseplants to wildflowers to carrots to redwoods. So we hope that other people just getting into gardening will see the diversity of plants that are out there and see them through the eyes of the people who are growing them. That's really what we're hoping for. And then they can connect. They can dial in even to somebody maybe locally around them who they can go maybe talk to because they're in the Master Gardeners or they're in another organization or, they're just approachable on social media. So Plants Map. And then also I would give a plug to the Cooperative Extension System. They're in the United States and, all 50 states. So look up the one for your state. I'm in Virginia, so the Virginia Cooperative Extension website is what I would recommend. Is there an equivalent to that for Canada? I'm not really familiar with that.
Well, England has an amazing one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my friends in England think like England invented gardening, so they have, through their Royal Horticultural Society, these incredible resources. But I was going to say Mobot is one that I use.
Yes.
The Missouri State Extension.
Yeah, and I do tell people, like I have had several people ask me questions from Canada, and so I will try to find fact sheets that relate to them closer to their zone. So from Washington State or from Montana or Oregon, rather than say, oh, here's this North Carolina fact sheet, because that's not going to be in any way relating. So when you do go search for cooperative extension resources, try to find something close to your zone or your area of the country. Yeah. Some things are kind of irrelevant. They're going to be the same across the country, but a lot of things, growing tomatoes in California is different than growing them in North Dakota, than Texas, than Florida, than New York. So
a lot of Canada is Zone 3, which is like the top of Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually 4B, almost 5, because I'm so far south where Ontario dips down into Michigan, Ohio. They're below the Great Lakes.
And you're kind of close to Lake Erie, too.
Yeah, we get that lake effect. So I'm like what Cleveland gets. Buffalo actually is a zone colder than me.
Really? Yeah,
poor
Buffalo is pretty rough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, we lived up in Rochester, and Rochester itself was zone 6, but I live south of Rochester and found out, my zone, I think gardeners are kind of weather, very in tune with weather as well. We kind of are amateur weather, people as well. And we have a weather station, a Davis weather station that feeds us information. So my backyard and even my microclimate, I was the lowest yard in my neighborhood. I was really more of a zone 5. So it was difficult growing hydrangeas there for sure.
This leads us into good old books. Like I love print books with a good gardening book. Can
Yep.
you recommend a favorite of yours or a book you would suggest for a novice gardener?
I don't really. I do have a lot of. I do have a lot of gardening books. I too still like the book in my hand for gardening books because I like the pictures of the plants and everything. And again, I'm really more into plants than I am into books about how to garden so much as I am into books about gardens and about plants. So I can't really think of one specific one that would be a how-to. So what I think about are books that tell you about plants and plant stories. So one of my favorite authors is Amy Stewart. I have all of her books, and I like her Wicked Plants book and her Drunken Botanist book. They're both fun, and I think it makes plants relate to you in a different way because they're telling you, stories about plants. So I like Amy Stewart books. I like Alan Armitage books, and one of his books about legends in the garden, which tells you stories about how plants came about and as related to people. And of course, Michael Durr. I have a lot of his books because he's all about plants and trees, and especially the trees and woody ornamentals, which is what I really like. And Viburnums is a book that he wrote, and that's one of my collection obsessions is Viburnums. So that's one of my favorite books too.
Wow. Awesome. I'm going to put links. People are trying to take notes with their iPhone and their thumb right now. Don't worry about it. I'll have all the links on the show notes at BackToMyGarden.com. And now we'll circle back. So question 2 was, what's the best gardening advice you've ever received, Tracy?
I'm really not sure. I think that I learned from other gardeners to just enjoy it and do as much or as little as you want and don't overdo it. One of the things I tell people is, don't try to go too big if you're new to it because you might get frustrated or you might find that it's more work than you intended. So I think, finding what is really enjoyable to you in gardening and then starting small, and then if you get bigger and bigger and you get really into it and you have the time and the energy and the interest and resources to do it, then you'll do it. So I think that was probably the best advice, which was, just going at your own pace and going the direction of what's enjoyable to you.
Excellent. Good wisdom. And finally, number 5 is a fun one. Is there anything that you're going to either try to experiment with next season or something you would suggest that all the gardeners try to grow next season?
Well, I think, the things that you grow are, kind of more should be about you and what you're interested in. So I would say grow something that looks fun to you, grow something that would make you happy, grow something that would be meaningful to you. So that's what I would suggest. I don't have any one specific, thing that I'm a huge proponent for or anything. We are growing some longleaf needle pines. We're growing I have a Franklin tree. I'm obsessed with the Franklin tree. So discovering maybe some unusual plants or plants that need some help in growing and coming back, like those 2 examples. And this year, I haven't ever done water gardening, so next year, it was on my list this year and we didn't get to it. I would love to have a water feature and learn about water plants and water gardening. So that's something I would like to try.
Nice. Yeah. I'm not familiar with the Franklin tree. I'm going to go look that up.
Okay. Look it up on PlantsMap. I think there's 2 or 3 different scenarios of it on there. So it's got a very interesting history about it.
I'm going to tell you my agenda with plantsmap.com because I've been gradually turning into a pepperhead.
Yes.
The hot pepper and the hotter the better. And then there's this weird subculture. These guys go dangerous into hot peppers.
Yes, I'm into peppers too. In terms of vegetables, yeah, I like ornamental peppers and I like peppers and hot peppers. And I don't grow that many hot peppers because I don't have people that can rise to my tolerance of heat in culinary cooking around here. So I I grow one maybe that's hot, and then the rest are more bell peppers. I would grow more hot peppers, but I mean, I just don't know what I'm going to do with them because I don't have people who can. I like really hot and spicy food, so yeah, I'm very interested into that pepper as well as you. So tell me about how you like to grow peppers.
It started with one little one pot. And his name is Naga. He's 1.3 million Scoville units.
Wow.
And he was the number 3 hottest pepper in the world for a while. And now I've ordered some Trinidad scorpions.
Oh, my word. Do you eat them or do you just grow them as a novelty?
I'm scared.
See, I would just grow them as a novelty. I've grown some habaneros, like a chocolate habanero, and I bought it from a farmer's market. And they're like, oh, yeah, people will really like this one for culinary purposes. It's extremely hot, but it has a really nice flavor. And so I liked it.
We made a hot sauce last week.
Yeah.
A blend, so it took it down a bit. And you wouldn't eat this on your own. You would add it to salsa or strip paint off the garage or something.
Wear gloves and don't touch your eyes or your nose or anything like that.
I'm going to make a little community on Plants Map of just kind of pepper people.
Yeah, I think there could be. It is an interesting subculture. Like you said, there are people who are really into the peppers and into the hot peppers. And I actually found somebody here locally. He was here working. We moved, and he was working on some furniture. He did furniture repair. Turns out he has a website about chilies. And he's like this chili, big-time hot chili pepper grower. And I'm like, that's crazy. So it's interesting. You start talking to people, and you don't realize they're really into growing plants or gardens, and you start talking to them, and then you see the passion come through with them about, they really get excited when they start talking about their plants and what they like to grow. So
awesome. Well, plantsmap.com is going to be a huge hit. Very excited about sharing it with people. You've been an amazing guest. Our time is flying by.
Yep.
I want to give you the last word to the listeners, and they're all over the world. Can you either share with them a pearl of wisdom or a note of encouragement on their gardening adventures?
I don't know. I would say maybe just keep digging. I would say just keep digging, hang in there. Don't give up. It's very worthwhile and rewarding, and it's good for you in so many ways, and it's beneficial for all of us in so many ways, for people to learn to grow and plant, trees or vegetables or flower gardens, pollinator gardens. It's all valuable. It's all good. And, just keep digging and learning and enjoying it.
Wonderful. Tracy, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you very much. I very much appreciate the opportunity, Dave.
Attention, garden lovers. Do you want to save time, save money, and have your most amazing garden ever? Receive free tips, strategies, and gardening techniques from passionate gardeners around the world. Join the VIP Club for free today at www.backtomygarden.com/VIP.